Really quickly before we get into the video, unfortunately I did not save the Bloodborne streams on time, so I lost all of the footage for later in the game. Luckily I saved the last Demon Souls stream where we rolled right into Bloodborne, so I caught the first 2 hours and basically first 2 bosses of the game. So it's enough footage to make my point here in this video, but unfortunately not everything will sync up, especially when I'm talking about later bosses or later items. So hopefully it works out pretty fine, I think. But yeah, so if things don't sync up, that's the reason. Let's get into the video. Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be talking about Bloodborne. In a recent video I posted about Dark Souls 2, where I talked about the things that people didn't like in Dark Souls 2, and then kind of defended them because I thought, you know, they did a lot of things right, and a lot of the mechanics are there for certain reasons. At the end I kind of said that out of all the games that I've been playing, which was basically the gauntlet of Fromsoft games, Demon Souls, Dark Souls 2, Dark Souls 3, and Bloodborne, that out of all those I'd played so far, Bloodborne was my least favorite. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, are the reasons that I didn't like Bloodborne, and I think I could break that down into like 3 main sections, which are resources. I had problems with the combat system, mostly the parry system, and also some problems with the world building. Again, this is just a personal thing. I know the game is very well loved, and I do not want this to be a hate video, because I don't think that's what I want this channel to be about. Like, oh, everybody loves this game, so I have to hate on it. That's not what the point is. The point is just that, like, I definitely just didn't like the game that much in comparison to the others, and these are the reasons why. So we're gonna get into the video real quick, and thank you guys so much for being here, and let's hop into it. For those of you who may not be too familiar, Bloodborne is a Souls-like game that has a more modern Victorian era setting where you take on beasts and different type of celestial beings, and this isn't a lore video, so I don't want to get into much into lore, so this is the broad overview that I remember from the game and some videos that I've seen. But basically what happens is humanity gets in touch with an eldritch being that then leads them to find different ways to ascend humanity into its next evolution, and if I remember right, there are 2 different ways that people go about doing this. Some of them look towards the blood of the celestial being, and then others look into like insight and basically opening your mind up by getting more eyes in your head, I think is like literally what they try to do, so that they can see these celestial beings. And what happens is with the blood, they find out that it cures most things, so they create the healing church, and basically everyone from around who's sick or whatever comes to get this blood, and it works out for a while, but then suddenly they realize that this, and this is where it's a little fuzzy, and I don't really know exactly what goes on, but basically the blood starts turning certain people into beasts, and thus the church creates hunters to hunt the beasts, so that the word doesn't get out that things are going wrong with the blood. But it gets to a point where Old Yarnum becomes overrun with beasts, so they basically close it off and burn it to the ground, and then the plague still continues to spread, and the church closes off its doors to the people, essentially letting them die. And then for whatever reason, you show up as a hunter. Yeah, because why not? So you show up as a hunter, get injected with some blood, and basically join the hunt, and you end up getting stuck in this hunter's dream with a man named Gehrman. And basically the lore that I know with that is there is a rogue sort of celestial being who wants hunters to hunt not only beasts but his own kind, so that he can kind of, I think he's mad at them for some reason, or he just wants to gain power, and so that's why you're stuck in this dream, is so that you can continue to hunt down basically the evil celestial beings like hit list. And then as you go through the game, essentially the point is to ascend humanity, or end the dream, or give in to the dream, or continue the dream, right? There's a bunch of different endings that you could do based on what you do in the game, but that is the overall lore that I know. Throughout the game, you'll encounter like werewolves, vampire-like creatures who need blood. You'll also meet like eldritch beings, eldritch horror stuff, and it's all set in like a kind of Victorian era setting. So that's kind of where we're at with the Bloodborne game. I probably didn't get all of that lore right, so if there's anything that I missed or needs to be corrected, feel free to put that in. That's not really what the video's about, but I just wanted to preface what the game is like before we got into it. So at face value, I mean, the concept of the game sounds really good, and it is fantastic. Like I said, I don't want this to be a hate video. We will touch on things that I did like, because there are a lot of them, and it is a great game. It deserves a high rating. But these are just the things that I didn't like. And first off, we're gonna get into resources was my #1 thing that I didn't like, especially resource farming. So in this game, right, like I said, it's really focused on blood and stuff, so you have these blood vials that you use to heal, and you're allowed 20 of them. There are ways to get that number a bit higher, but mainly you're just having about 20. Same with bullets, right? This is not your typical Dark Souls game. It's more focused on using your offhand weapon, which is often a pistol of some kind, to parry, but we'll get into that later. But essentially, those are your loadout, is you have these blood vials, and you need bullets to use your gun, and then you'll have a weapon in your right hand as usual. The problem that I had with this one is with the fact that these are all finite, and there's different reasons for that. So healing items I'm not too upset with, because it's not like a new thing that they did. I mean, they had Demon Souls where you had to farm grass or whatever to get healing items, right? That's how you heal in Demon Souls, so it's not like a new thing. I definitely feel like in Demon Souls it wasn't as big of an issue because there's different types of grass that did different levels of healing, so you kind of always had a stock of something. But definitely I found myself lacking if you're going into boss runs for these things, which got really annoying because these bosses hit like trains the more you go on. So that wasn't my main thing. I wasn't too mad about the blood vials. It just does get annoying to farm them if you run out. Basically how you run out is there's a storage in the game, so if you have 20 blood vials and you collect more while you play through, it'll just send them to your storage, and then if you reset to the dream or die and restart at a lantern, it will automatically pull the extra from storage and put them back in your inventory, so you do sort of restock automatically. However, if you don't have any in storage, you won't restock, and you'll just be stuck with whatever you died with, which means you have to go farm to get more or buy some, which gets really annoying if you're stuck on a boss or a section of the game. Because like I said, these enemies hit really hard, and you're often, if you make any sort of mistake, even with regular enemies, you're gonna have a huge chunk out of your health, and you're often gonna use healing items to get those back. And again, my other problem is there's only really blood vials that you can use to heal. There are different ways, obviously, but like in terms of resources, when compared to Demon Souls, where you have the different types of grass to do different things, right? There's only blood vials for the most part. I know that there are some special ones, but as far as I did it when I played through, you could only get like one at a time of these special blood vials, and so you're just kind of stuck with this one item that you have to farm, which I did not enjoy at all. So but moving on to my least favorite, I guess, was the bullets, because I think the bullets are so crucial to the combat, which we'll get into in a second, that having a finite amount of them really brings down the game, because you're gonna be using them all the time to try to get parries, because it's such an efficient way to get damage, especially when bosses have attacks or trigger phases that they get temporary poise to where you can't stagger them with normal hits. So then the only safe, sure way is to use bullets to parry them, and then you can go in for a visceral / repost and then get a ton of damage in. So the problem with that is that if you go into a fight with 20 bullets, that means you really only have 20 shots to parry this guy, if you did it perfectly, which if you're coming off Dark Souls, the combat is very different, so it's tough to get used to, and you'll be wasting bullets a lot trying to figure it out. And I think it also limits a Blood Tinge build for the most part, because Blood Tinge is an attribute in Bloodborne that will raise basically your pistol damage, and so if you don't do that, then the pistol's really only for parrying, but it can do damage if you upgrade Blood Tinge and get the certain weapons that are meant for it. But other than that, like, the gun is usually just used to parry, and you have a finite amount of that, and that's just really annoying, because parrying is a great part of the Dark Souls series games, I guess any Souls-like game, and like I think it's such a big moment when you like get a parry in a big fight, because it's just like a turning moment, like you get this free damage and it just feels good. But then like when you're using a resource to do that, it kind of takes away from it, because you're like, okay, well now, you know, it took me 3 resources to finally get that timing right. Now I only have like 7 bullets left, so it's like you just kind of feel this, I guess, and some people might like that, you get this pressure that like, okay, I can only parry this many times. Like it's a bit more strategic, but it's also just annoying, because like if you're new to the game and you don't know how it works, like you'll get stuck on like a boss, and then you just have to spend 2 hours farming for like health resources, silver bullet resources, just to go back in and waste another 13 of them, because you're just trying to figure out how it works. So I just think it's really annoying that you would have such an important combat item be finite. Like they could have definitely just restocked that automatically. Like I just don't think bullets needed to be, I'm fine with having 20, like that's okay, but like you could have just had bullets not be a resource you had to farm. And again, like this is, like I had picked up Bloodborne before, and this is probably a main reason, I mean many years ago, and this is probably the reason why I didn't go far in the game at all. Most of this game was brand new to me, and I think it was mainly, if I remember, is because of this. Like you have to go fight a boss, it's really difficult, the combat's tough, and then to even use the combat, you have to go farm for an hour, and it just takes away from the experience to where like you don't want to just, you're not beating the boss because it's fun, and like you just want to get it over with, because if I don't win, then I have to go farm more, and it's just really annoying. Because if you mess up that, right, the enemies, even the normal enemies, hit really hard, so it's just kind of like, and then you're wasting healing items, and it just snowballs. Luckily, one of the reasons that I was able to get through this playthrough, and probably the only reason I was able to get through this playthrough, especially at the end, was that there's a thing called dungeons in this game. So after you beat a certain boss, you get a chalice, and then throughout the game you can get different types of chalices or items, and then you use those to enter different dungeons in the game. I didn't delve deep into these because they seemed like just kind of annoying side quests, so I never went into the dungeons, honestly. But my chat did let me know about there's certain user-made dungeons, I guess, where it's kind of like a glitch to give you a ton of blood echoes, which is like currency in the game. And so all you have to do is go in, stand near a wall, and you'll get like 80,000 echoes, and then you can go back and buy stuff. So that was basically what I used it for, was to get resources, because it's just so annoying to go farm them. And like, but yeah, I think my number one gripe with this game that made it very annoying to me and almost not finish, even with the dungeon that gives you a ton of echoes, like, it was just resource farming. I think it was too much, and it drew away from the combat for me to have a finite amount of parries in a game, in a series where parrying is just usually so fun. But that was the first thing. We will move on to the second part, which is the combat system slash parrying system. So the combat system in this game is very good. It is fun. It is faster. It is snappier. It is quicker. Like, it's the animations are cool. I like that you sidestep instead of roll. The back steps are cool. But I think when you look at the parry system again, like I said, I have a real problem with it. Not just because of the resources, but because the timing of it is very different, right? When you're playing like Demon Souls or Dark Souls, any of those games, I haven't played Sekiro, so I don't really know how that one works. But in any of those ones, the like sword on shield contact gives you like it gives you a more exact timing, I guess. Like when you hit it, like, you know you've hit it. But with the bullet, it takes time for it to get there. So this does two things, right? That means you can parry from very far away, which is cool. But also it means that there's like a split seconds between when you hit the button to shoot and then the bullet hitting him. And sometimes if you do it at just the wrong frame, which of course, with my natural talent at being very awkward at games, I consistently would hit this timing where I would shoot the bullet, it would take a split second to hit him, I would parry, but in that time it took the bullet to get there, he would hit me. So then we do this weird trade where we're both just on our asses sitting there, but because he hit me, I take a shit ton of damage and I can't get it back. Well, and I can't do a visceral because I'm on the floor. So it's just like this weird timing in the game that's very tough to get used to, and it can be very annoying because you get the parry, but you aren't able to act on it. And I just feel like that's not a common thing in the other games, like where you get the parry and you hear the sound for the parry, like, you know you have the follow-up, right? Like, you even have time, if you're good enough in Dark Souls, to like change your weapon, right? And this one, I just feel like the timing's just weird enough to where you get these weird interactions, and it makes it just less rewarding of a parry. I parry him and then it doesn't do anything. Oh, that kind of hurted. That kind of hurted too. And then also, if you do that and you get the parry, right? Now you've wasted a bullet because you're both on your ass. Like, you don't get to use, there's no reward for it if you get this weird timing, right? And again, that's just, I guess, yeah, skill issue. I guess you should get good, but like, as again, a pretty much first time player of Bloodborne coming off the other games, like, it's just kind of sucks to do. Multiple times that it's a thing. It also often has, it also bugs out on like different terrain, right? You can get a parry on one of the ogres before you go fight Father, I always mess up his name, but it's like Gasquion, something like that. One of the first bosses in the game. You can parry like this giant like beast ogre thing on the stairs, and if you parry him on the stairs, you can't actually visceral because it's uneven surface. The stairs game? You're gonna run me out of here with the stairs? There we go. Now we're on even ground, baby. Ah, this game. What are we doing? And you don't actually get, as far as I tried, you couldn't get the riposte to actually come off. So then it's just like, cool. Like, I don't know. That might be the thing in Dark Souls as well. I don't know if I ever parried someone on stairs, but I just think it's silly. That's like, all right, cool. I can't do that on stairs. That's just really annoying. And then of course we just kind of talked about it before. Because of the bullets being finite, your amount of parries are finite, which is just really weird to me. I mean, I get the point behind it. They don't want you to spam bullets and just kill bosses or enemies just by dodging around and staying far away. And yet they made a blood tinge thing where that's kind of what you can do anyway. But yeah, I don't really know why bullets are finite because it takes away from the combat system, which is very good at its base. But then if you put in this weird like trading timing and finite resources where you can only parry so many times if you run out, I know that you can use, if you click up on the D-pad, you can use your own blood to make 5 more bullets, which is fine, but then you're just trading blood vials for bullets. So then again, these resources can, would you rather heal with a boss that does, more than half your damage with every hit? Would you rather heal, or would you rather use a blood vial to get bullets? Like, it just kind of sucks because I like parrying so much, and this game is fun to do it in, right? It's so quick and snappy that when you shoot and you do get a parry, like mid combo, like it's really cool. But then I'm always worried that like, if I mess this up now, like, am I gonna have to go grind for another 2 hours? It just takes away from it. I know also with the blood vial thing, there is the regain system. So if you get hit, they leave a little orange part of the bar left from where your damage was. And depending on different stats and whatever, you can go attack the boss. And basically, since you're making them bleed, I think is the lore, that the blood heals you, because that's a big part of the game. So if you go and attack after getting hit, you can kind of regain your health a little bit that way. But again, I think this is mostly a trap, because what happens a lot with that, again, you can't do that if you get the parry timing wrong and you take a hit as you're parried, because you can't go get the visceral because you're on the floor. So then all the damage that you just took to get the parry, you lose, because by the time you get up, it's already gone. You can't get the regain in. And then also, I think, like, the game is so quick that with most bosses, attacking them right after getting hit is just going to get you killed. And I didn't experiment too much with the different runes or whatever. For those of you who don't know, runes are the way that you upgrade your character and weapons, right? You can attach runes to them. They're kind of like attachments. And you can definitely mess around with this revenge system, whatever it is. And so I didn't really mess around with that because I never was in a situation where it was happening enough for me to try it. And I felt that if I ever did really go for it, like I took a hit and I was like, okay, now I'm gonna go get the health back, I often just still made a net negative. Like, I think it's a trap. Like, it wants you to go attack fast. And I know that you can just, play better. But to me, playing better was getting hit and then reassessing what's going on and not jumping back into the combat, because I will often die because they hit so hard. So I think the regain system is mostly a trap. I didn't like it at all. I'm not gonna say it's a bad thing. I think it could definitely trap new players pretty heftily. So I didn't know where to put these next ones. It's armor and the weapons. I'm gonna put that in the combat instead of the item section, because at least the armor is definitely more, my gripe with it is more combat focused, because there's no poise in this game and there's no weight. The weight part I can 100% agree with, right? This is a fast game, you're a hunter, right? There's no reason for you to be tanky and slow. It wouldn't make much sense in the world at all, so I'm fine with having no weight. That's cool, but definitely takes away a trade-off that is cool about the Dark Souls games. And in this one, I feel like it takes away from the armor really being important. So getting armor, to me, was like less interesting in this game. I think you get really good armor off the shoot too. Like, you can find like really good hunter armor like right away. And then after that, like, honestly, there's no real reason to change it, because I found that even if you're trying to do certain armor to raise your resistance against certain conditions, like frenzy or something, depending on the level, I never saw a true real difference, like a notable difference in how fast like frenzy grew when like faced with a winter lantern or anything like that. Again, for those of you who maybe new or don't know what frenzy is, it is like a curse from Dark Souls, if you want to make that comparison, or it's just kind of something that certain enemies have that will build up on you, and then if it reaches the full bar, it triggers frenzy, and then basically like 90% of your health goes away depending on different things. So it just kind of, it's very annoying. And I definitely got to the part where you're with the Brain of Mensis and you're trying to break that down, and there's a whole bunch of winter lanterns, and so I threw on the gear that had the highest frenzy, and I still felt like it wasn't noticeable to me how quickly frenzy came. You really have to use, again, items to cure your frenzy, which then you have to go grind or buy, and it gets annoying again. So I just feel like the armor didn't do a lot, and it wasn't very important in the game. There's nothing that really ever gets better than like the second armor set that you find. Like I said, like, there's nothing that really gets overall better, right? At some point, basically after that one, you're just trading off like physical defense for a certain resistance, or this resistance for this resistance, and it's just all becomes a trade-off. So it like doesn't really matter which one you have, as far as I could tell. I could be wrong. Maybe there's something that I missed or some stat that I missed. Again, I was doing a mostly skill arcane build, so I don't know if there was something that I missed. But moving on to weapons, trick weapons. Oof, I just, again, didn't think they were that interesting. The gimmick of them switching back and forth, which is basically a take on one-handing versus two-handing a sword, and basically what happens with trick weapons is when you transform them, then they have some special type of move or a different sort of attribute where like maybe they attack further away or they shoot a bullet while stabbing, something like that. I know that's the one that I had the spear one that would like you could shoot a bullet out of the tip too. Like it was pretty cool, I guess, but like I just never saw a real reason in combat to ever switch between forms. It didn't seem to have a real applicable reason to switch like during actual combat. Like if you want to switch while you're walking around because you see the enemy ahead of you and you're like, okay, I would be good if I, use the range type of this, or it'd be good if I had faster things than I could parry this enemy. But it's like when you're actually in like a boss fight, like the amount of time it usually takes to like that half second to take it to switch, or maybe it'll hit too slow if it's in its other form, whatever it is, like it just didn't seem like I needed I needed both. Like I think I was totally fine with just one for most of any boss fight, and like so I just didn't really see the point in the trick weapons. Like they're cool to like run around and look at, but other than that, like in actual combat I never saw a reason for it. The other thing is that there weren't a lot of them. I basically, like, you can use the weapon that you got at the very beginning of the game and it'll be perfectly fine. I think even one of the weapons at the start is considered one of the best weapons in the game, and so it's like you could just use the same weapon, which I think is really boring. I really like switching weapons, getting something new, and it does something different, and I just felt like I got the spear very early on. That's basically what I used because it scales with arcane and skill. That's what I used for like 90% of the game. So like I said, like you just didn't stumble on weapons that much, and the store had them after you got badges, hunter badges, but again, like there just aren't many, and it's kind of lame. Like I was kind of always looking around for a new weapon or whatever, and they just don't come up a lot. The only one that was really cool to me that was if you go to Canehurst, I believe, there's like that guy in the hallway, the like little guy with like the rapier that attacks you after you come out of, I think, the library. The weapon that he has, if you get it off of him, is like a trick weapon where when you go and you transform it, it becomes a dual pistol, so you get to use your offhand pistol and that one becomes a pistol in your right hand, which I think would be super sick. I was waiting for something like that, but it's not that cool because then you're wasting double the bullets, which means you're going to go back and farm more resources as fast as possible. Yeah, so again, just the weapons and their forms changed. I just didn't think that they were that interesting or applicable to anything really. So just to put this out there, I did not get a DLC, which I think fixes the weapon problem. I think there's a lot more weapons in the DLC from what I've heard, but like I didn't even get there. Like I had no interest in getting the DLC. Like that's how like annoying this game got to me, that I just wanted it to be over. And like some people ask like, oh, you're gonna get the DLC now? Because I did. I played Dark Souls 3 and then I was like, oh, this is sick, I'm gonna get the DLC and play through the DLC for Dark Souls 3. Like I bought it. They sold me on it, and this one didn't sell me on it, so I was like, no, I can't. Like, I don't want it. It just seemed like it was more of what I was doing with a little more bells and whistles, so it just didn't seem that great, and that's kind of a big reason why I put this lower in the series that we've done in the Soul series, is that it didn't make me want to play more at all. Which is rare for these games. Anyway, I know there are more weapons in the DLC and stuff like that, but yeah, I mean, it's kind of lame that there's so few. Another heinous thing that the weapons did was change the backstab mechanic. Oh, I'm too fast. Oh, there's no like crit. That's lame. I don't know why he would mess with this. Like, if you sneak up on somebody from behind and like hit R1, you should just backstab. Like, but they make you do this whole charge routine, which I think is really dumb. Like, I don't know. Like, it's like, why? Like, well, why? I don't get it. It makes sense. Like, the charging to offset your opponent to like get a visceral in makes sense for some of the bigger enemies, like when you fight the amygdala, whatever it is. It does certain animations that leaves its head hanging low, and you're like, all right, yeah, obviously I gotta go charge and hit it in the head to hopefully get a counter on it. And that makes sense, right? Your big thing must charge up, right? But like when you're fighting like just the low level enemies, like just let me backstab. Like, I don't see why not. So that was really annoying that you have to actually charge your weapon to do a backstab. It's like a whole 2-step, 3-step process. And it shouldn't be, I don't think. But those are the problems that I had with the combat system. Again, just to say, it is fun to play. A lot of the combat is cool. It just does get very annoying with all the things that I said, where it's just not interesting to get through. And you end up, for me, when you beat bosses or whatever, it's more of a thank God that's over than a that was really cool that I finally won. Which I think are two very different experiences. It's very unrewarding to beat these bosses, in my opinion. But again, that's not to say that the combat isn't really cool and fun and snappy at times, and the bosses aren't kind of interesting, but we'll get into bosses in a second. Some of the bosses are really fun, and some of the fights are really fun, but I think it's few and far between, honestly. So we will move on to the third and final section, which is world building. So for the third reason, world building, there's a couple things I want to go over here. I played through with a ton of insight. I know I was just complaining about the frenzy system, and I know insight lowers your frenzy resistance, but I think that insight could have done so much more than, and I thought it was going to, but it's really, I think, a letdown. It is integral to the game, and it makes sense. Insight basically is a stat you get from witnessing like an eldritch, horror, or like some like incomprehensible thing that happens, like something turning into a beast, going into a nightmare, like stuff like that will up your insight. And I was really hoping that it was going to be something important, or like, and it just doesn't do a lot. It just does like cosmetic things. So the point of the game is that, right, like I talked about, there's like these celestial beings that you've encountered, and everyone's going mad and stuff like that. And one of the things you do is once you hit like 40 insight, you'll start to see these beings, these giant like nightmare beings that are on the buildings and in different areas, just hanging out, basically, which is it is a really cool reveal once you get there. But then after that, it's kind of like they don't do much. Right? Like, some of them can interact with you, they can pick you up and kill you, or take you to a nightmare, which is, interesting, but like, the thing that I found is, before I could see them, I got picked up by one, and then it still shows you it. Like, you can still see it, right? And that's, I think you get an insight point for that, but like, then you can see him before you even unlock the insight. So it's like, you don't really need the insight. You do need one insight to level up in the game. That's the only reason the doll is available, is once you get one insight, which is probably the most important things it does, but that's at one insight, and you can get 99 of them. So it's not that, like, you're gonna get one insight. It's not that big of a deal. Once you can activate the doll at one insight, and then 40 insight, you can see the giant creatures. After that, it just changes the theme in the hunter's dream. Like, that's all it does, which is like the hub area of the game. It just changes the theme, and then once you hit like 50, it changes the theme again, and then it does the most annoying thing in the world at 60, which is the final tier, and it just has a baby crying in your ear the whole time. And I remember going like, dude, can someone shut this baby up? And even in chat, people were like, can we like stop with this baby thing? Like, and I didn't know what was causing it, and I guess neither did they. Like, I don't have a great big community, but yeah, apparently it's just because you have 60 insight, so you can hear, I think it's the child of the cosmos or something like that, like crying, or it's Murgo's baby, I don't remember. But yeah, you just hear this baby crying, so then you just have this like yelling in your ear the whole time. Like, it's cool, like insight, yeah, at certain levels it gives you like whispers in your head, which is kind of fun. Like, it does make you drive a little mad, but like the baby crying is so annoying. Like, why? I was really hoping that it would, so like, basically I was really hoping Insight would do more than just cosmetic things. Like, I thought it would be cool if it was linked to the arcane powers more than just the arcane stat. So as you travel through the game, you can get certain like eldritch powers depending on how you go. You can kind of go the beast route, and kind of go the blood route, where you can like eventually transform into a beast. I didn't do that. I went more the cosmos way, the eldritch way, the insight way, where I guess the arcane way, where you get, because it doesn't have anything to do with insight, where you get certain eldritch being powers, kind of like magic. Those, of course, take bullets. That's why I was like, the blood vial, using your blood for extra bullets doesn't help, because it only gives you 5, and a lot of the important arcane powers are at least like 5 or 6, so it gets you like one shot of that, which isn't that great. So again, I just don't think the trade-off is worth it. But that's back to resources and why I hate it so much, because you just don't get to use the magic or anything, and it's just like really annoying. Just so much revolves around bullets, and you just don't get enough of them. I know that you can get, and I used it, the rune that lets you regain 2 bullets when you visceral. Like, I had it, and it's just not enough. If you waste like 6 to do something, or it takes you 3 shots or even 2 shots to parry somebody, like if you mess up once, like then it automatically just doesn't help you. So it can get really annoying. But anyway, this is about insight. I was really hoping insight would link to arcane powers in some way. I think it would be cool if the like powers, instead of based on the arcane stat, it was kind of with insight instead, or somehow insight boosted the arcane powers, because that just makes sense. Like, that seems what insight all about. It's about connecting to the eldritch world. So it's like, when I'm using an eldritch power, like, why doesn't insight have a factor? Like, why is there just a stat for it? And like, they could have linked it somehow to that, which is what I was hoping for, but that didn't happen. So I think Insight was a big letdown. It seems pointless. Like, once you have one, you can go through the game with or without it, because you don't really need to see the people, I think, to progress the game. They pick you up anyway, whether you see them or not. So I don't know if it actually stops you from going anywhere. And then the bosses, when it comes to Hunter on Hunter violence, I think it was fantastic. Some of the best fights are when you're fighting like Father Gascoigne, is that his name? I probably said it differently earlier. When you're fighting him or any of the NPCs, Gehrman, like when you're fighting them in their hunter form, those fights are really fun. Like, getting to know those patterns and dodging, it's so fast, and they are also so fast, and it's really just this really cool dance that you do, but they still manage to screw that up at times. The bosses always kind of devolve into like these either one-tap infinite combo or gimmicky annoying bosses. Like, almost all of them do, and it just gets really annoying. Examples of that, right? Father Gascoigne turns into a beast in his third phase. I know that you can cheese the shit out of him too by using the music box. I never found it. I only knew about it after, I guess, or maybe I did find it and I didn't know what it was for. I don't know, but I didn't use the thing, so I actually fought him in his beast form, and that is super annoying. He has a couple combos that just are relentless and hit you as soon as you get up, and it's just like it's just very annoying, because it's just like I don't even get to fight him. I wasn't too mad about that one because the first two phases were really fun to fight him. The one that bothered me the most though is probably Mikolash. I know this guy, if any criticism of Bloodborne from what I could find was Mikolash, because he's really annoying. He just runs around the library a bunch in his nightmare, and you have to just chase him until you get him into a corner, and then he just the first part's fine, like you can just dodge around his little tentacle attacks, but the second and final phase fight where you're in that cage basically with him, if you get like half a step too far from him, he'll just start spamming like this ultimate Eldritch attack, which you get later, but he uses it in this tiny space where you can't get away, and it's just like an insta-kill. Like, so you have to constantly stay close, which isn't bad, but it's just like if you mess up your stamina or you hit too many times, like you literally have to do like hit, dodge his attack, hit, dodge his attack, just to keep him in this loop to where he like counters you, and if you get him out of that loop, there's a chance that he might just explode and kill you. So it's just like, it's one of the most annoying parts of the game. I definitely almost stopped playing there because it's just like I didn't even want to beat him. Like, it's just so annoying. But eventually you get through it, you learn the tango, and you win. But again, it's just unrewarding. You're just like, thank God I don't have to do that again. Like, I don't want to come back. I don't want a new game plus this. But and it's similar with like Margot's Wet Nurse. Like, there's a bunch of them. Like, it just, their desperation moves, like, they really are tough. But I guess they're tough not in the sense that like they're fun tough. Like, it's just like Margot's Wet Nurse, if you don't want to die, like, you just have to run in a circle for like the minute that it lasts in this purple haze, and you just dodge every time you see the clone, and like then it's fine, and then you go hit the Wet Nurse a couple more times, and then eventually it'll just do it again, and then you just don't even get to do anything. You just get to run in a circle for 2 minutes. Like, cool. So it's not that fun. But so the last one, I think, I mean, for gimmick bosses, I mean, you just have the witch. I know that you can just kind of cheese her. I learned that after, of course, but the Witch of Hemwick is really annoying. It's just an invisible witch that runs around, and if you have insight, which I had, it spawns enemies, but they were never a problem. They didn't even attack me, I think, most of the time. But the witch, like, again, it's just one of those bosses where it's like, it's so easy, and then they just pull out a one tap on you. Like you can get to that part, there's like that broken bridge, and sometimes it's underneath the bridge, so if you're just wandering around like trying to find it, it'll just like explode again. Like, there's all these weird explosion attacks that just kill you in one hit. The final thing, I put this at the end, is the aesthetic. This is entirely a personal thing, which is why I put it at the end. The Victorian era, like Beast and stuff like that isn't my favorite. I like the fantasy knight genre. This definitely just from the start is not entirely something that I can get into as much as the other games. And then coupled with all of the stuff that I just mentioned, right, it just makes it for an annoying experience for me. But some people love it. Again, I can't knock the lore at all. I do like the Eldritch lore. This, like, trying to elevate the human status, I think that's super sick, and I think that I also can't knock that this isn't the setting for it, right? Like, this Victorian era setting is the setting for something like this, right? They nailed that. Like, this is what it needed, but again, it's just not for me. But the lore is super cool. I do like all of that kind of stuff. Like, it's cool, like jumping into nightmares and stuff, very interesting. But then again, like when you get into the nitty gritty of the combat and resource farming and all that stuff, like it just takes away from it for me. To where I'm more annoyed to play than I am excited to get to somewhere new. But yeah, I know a lot of people love it. Those are the reasons why I didn't like it. If you have any other reasons why, maybe you didn't, something else that you didn't like, maybe I missed something as well, or I don't know. I'm sure there's going to be a ton of people defending this game, and that is totally fine. Again, this is not a hate video. This is just a personal reason why I didn't like it. And I think, hopefully if there is ever a remaster of it, I will definitely play it, probably. Hopefully I see that they fixed something here that I didn't like, or else it's just going to be another annoying experience. But, you know, again, it's FromSoft's game. Like, it is a Souls-like game. It is something that I enjoy playing, and it is a good game at the end of the day compared to other games that are out there. It just, in the series that we have played so far, again, I think it ranks the lowest for these reasons. Just because the feeling of playing it is annoying, and I am no stranger to beating my head against a wall in these games, right? Like, my other playthroughs were well over 200 deaths, and not playing most of the other Souls games, so that's not really the issue, is dying multiple times. I think I died almost the least in this one. I think the only one I died less on was Dark Souls 2, or maybe Demon Souls. Demon Souls is easy. But yeah, like this one, it's just, yeah, it's not, again, it didn't make me want to buy a DLC. Yep, that's all I have to say. Thank you guys so much for watching. Again, I'm sure there's a lot to talk about if you guys watch this thing fully through, so go ahead and leave your comments down below, and I will see you guys all in the next one. Bye!